The Mario Kart series is one of the longest running Mario spin-offs, and continues to be some of the most popular Mario games of all time, and even some of the most popular video games of all time. The newer games, more specifically Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Mario Kart World, are seen as being some of the best in the series. And to be fair, none of the Mario Kart games are bad games, but there's another Mario Kart game that's often a part of that same conversation.
And that game is Mario Kart DS. Today we're going to discuss whether we think that Mario Kart DS is perfect. Is it the best Mario Kart in the series, or is it held up in our minds as one of the best because of nostalgia? Hi, I'm Charlie, I'm back, and let's discuss Mario Kart DS. Make sure to subscribe.
My journey with Mario Kart DS started in 2010. By 2010, I'd gotten a Nintendo Wii and played Mario Kart Wii to death. I loved every second of it, I really did. I'd always wished to get a portable Mario Kart though, and luckily Nintendo had made one before Mario Kart Wii. I begged to get a DS for Christmas, and I specifically wanted a DS Lite because it had Game Boy Advance backwards compatibility. And if you looked hard enough, you could still find Game Boy Advance games for purchase at this point in time. Finally, Christmas Day arrived, and I got a DSi.
Yeah, it's not what I wanted, but I got a bit of a compromise.
With my DSi, I got a cart that had every single DS game on it, as well as a Game Boy Advance emulator and an SNES emulator. But the emulators aren't that important. I had access to Mario Kart DS and the rest of the DS library. But after getting Mario Kart DS, I honestly didn't really play it that much myself. Instead, Mario Kart DS became the game I'd play with friends. At my school, we'd have these days at the after and before school care area, yeah, the same area that I mentioned in the previous video, called DS versus PSP days, where you'd bring either your DS or your PSP.
I think maybe one person brought their PSP, and they were seen as weird.
Because everyone had their DS, I played a lot of DS download play Mario Kart DS, and that was so much fun. Mario Kart DS wasn't the main game we played, it was mainly a lot of games like New Super Mario Bros. And Mario Party DS, and exploring our R4 cards and seeing whatever else was on these random things. It was just a lot of fun. But after that year, I kinda stopped playing Mario Kart DS because I got Mario Kart 7 on the day it came out. I had my portable Mario Kart 7, and I had my home console Mario Kart Wii, which we also played a lot in that same place. I had no need for Mario Kart DS, which led to it just being this other Mario Kart game. The game is often considered to be one of the best Mario Kart games of all time, but I never really knew because although I played it a bit with friends, I didn't really play it all that much by myself. But that all changed almost a decade later.
See, in 2020, I decided to go all in collecting games, such as Yokai Watch Just Dance for the Wii U.
I'd already attempted to begin to collect older games. I had an NES and a PlayStation, and I mean I got an original Game Boy the same year I got Mario Kart 7, same as the Game Boy Color, but by 2020 I decided that I wanted to go fully into it. So I did, and two of the main consoles I collected for, mainly because they were the easiest, were the Wii and the DS. Because on both the Wii and DS most of the games I had were not legal, I had pretty much the entire libraries to collect. All I had from the DS was Sonic Rush Adventure, and on the Wii I had like 5 games. I'd even gotten rid of my copy of Wii Sports along with all my Skylanders. The two Mario Kart games were incredibly hard to find, and even when they were, they sold for around 30 to 40 Australian dollars, which in the grand scheme of things is not that much, but I don't really like paying that much for older games. But eventually, in 2021, I found a copy of Mario Kart DS, and spent the money I'd made working at the world's most disgusting fast food restaurant in order to purchase it. And when I finally got my copy of Mario Kart DS, I didn't really play it.
Look, I know, I did play it a little bit, but to be honest, even today I haven't played that much Mario Kart DS. All the footage you're gonna see today of Mario Kart DS was filmed on the Wii U Virtual Console that I recorded specifically for this video. I haven't actually played that much Mario Kart DS on an actual DS. However, if you want to actually see me play Mario Kart DS on an actual DS and experience what it's truly like, become a member right now now where you'll get to see some exclusive footage of me playing Mario Kart DS on the actual DS, and I'll discuss whether I think the game actually works better on the DS and see if I have any other cool things to say about it. I haven't recorded it yet though, so I don't know what I'm gonna say, but hopefully it's something good.
Mario Kart DS is considered to be the first of the modern Mario Kart games. Where Super Mario Kart to Super Mario Kart Double Dash were the beginnings of the series, Mario Kart DS truly brings Mario Kart to being recognizable to what it is today. Or at least to what Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is. Mario Kart World is kinda the next evolution on top of that, but we'll get to it sooner or later. Mario Kart DS redesigned the Mario Kart logo to make it more clean and grey. The way you drift in this game is similar to the later Mario Kart games compared to the earlier Mario Kart games. It introduces retro tracks, which although technically Super Circuit did by including the entirety of Super Mario Kart, this one actually recreates the tracks and mixes them together, and it also includes a mission mode. Yeah, Mario Kart DS is one of two Mario Karts that actually basically has a full single player campaign. Even Mario Kart World, which has the open world P-Switch missions, can't really compare to the mission mode in Mario Kart DS, as the mission mode in Mario Kart DS is more structured like an average Mario game. Hell, there's even boss fights that are boss fights from Super Mario 64 DS. The Mario Kart DS mission mode is truly a revolutionary mode in this game, and I wish it would return in the future to other Mario Kart games, because I'd love it. It almost returned to Mario Kart Wii, but it was cut out during development. But mission mode is just a small piece of the pie when it comes to Mario Kart DS. There's also everything else that comes with a Mario Kart game. There's of course the Grand Prix mode where you can play through all 8 cups. It works the same way as it does in any other Mario Kart game, no differences here. As I said earlier, there was DS download play where you could play against people and everyone would play as Shy Guys if they didn't own the game, but there was also the inclusion of online play. Now to be honest, I never really played Mario Kart DS online. I couldn't tell you a single memory I have playing it online. I played Mario Kart Wii online, but I highly doubt that my DS was even connected to the internet for the longest time. I mean, I truly have no idea. I don't have any memory from Mario Kart DS online. I just know it was an option.
Mario Kart DS was chock full of stuff to do. I mean, you truly never ran out of objectives to do in this game. It's honestly got more stuff to do than Mario Kart Wii has to do. Which kinda seems to fit with the description of all these games that had DS versions that later got Wii versions. Like with New Super Mario Bros. Compared to New Super Mario Bros. Wii. New Super Mario Bros. On the DS feels a lot more creative than New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And that's the same between Mario Kart DS and Mario Kart Wii. That's pretty interesting. Anyway, let's talk about the tracks themselves.
Let's begin with the Mushroom Cup. The first track in the Mushroom Cup is known as Figure 8 Circuit, which is this game's Mario Circuit / Luigi Circuit track. It's a generic racing track in the shape of a figure 8, hence the name, with some pretty interesting background details. In the background we see these rectangular blocks resembling the rectangle blocks from Super Mario Bros. 3, and is actually the first time we've seen them in a modern Mario game since Super Mario Bros. 3. Unless you include All-Stars and Super Mario Advance 4, of course. This seems like such a minor thing to mention, but seeing things from older Mario games was such a unique concept at the time. There's also massive bleachers full of 2D PNGs of people watching you drive around. I mean, none of the graphics are going to be that detailed, this is the DS, but it just adds to the environment that this track has. The next track is Yoshi Falls, and this one is one of the most iconic Mario Kart DS tracks in the whole game. I actually mainly know this track from playing it in Mario Kart Wii, but this track is just as iconic in Mario Kart Wii as it is in Mario Kart DS. It's a simple circle with a massive twist. If you drive too close to the edge, you'll fall off into a massive pit of water and be picked up by Lakitu. You do not want to fall in that massive pit of water, you'll probably end up not coming first if you do so. So even with this simple track, they've made it a bit more unique with the massive hole. Mario Kart DS has the advantage of being on the DS where making tracks in 3D was possible, so they didn't need to make any of these weird 2D 3D tracks like in Mario Kart Super Circuit. They could actually go out of their way to make something cool, and that's seen in full force with the next track, Cheep Cheep Beach. Cheep Cheep Beach introduces us to enemies appearing on the road, such as Sidesteppers and Cheep Cheep, and introduces us to a level hazard, being the water. This track is fairly similar to Peach Beach from Mario Kart Double Dash, but it's not really based on Super Mario Sunshine unlike that track. And finally, for the end of the Mushroom Cup, we have a track titled Luigi's Mansion.
I wonder what this track is based on.
Super Mario RPG?
No, John, think about it for a second. Oh. Mario teaches typing?
Despite the fact that this track is called Luigi's Mansion, you'd be surprised to know that you actually spend more time driving outside of the mansion itself, rather than driving inside of it. Now, I wouldn't say that driving entirely inside a mansion would make for that interesting of a track, but it's kind of interesting when the track is literally called Luigi's Mansion. Regardless of the name, the track isn't actually a bad track, and actually introduces us to more things that future tracks have, such as mud that can slow you down, more level hazards such as the walking trees, and boos that follow you around. It's a fun track, but it does kind of feel out of place in the Mushroom Cup. Normally, the Mushroom Cup is left for all the basic tracks, whereas Luigi's Mansion feels like a later cup, but who cares, I don't make the rules. Next we have the Flower Cup, with the first track being Desert Hills. I don't think I like this track.
Look, that's not a slight against this track in particular. I don't think I like any of the desert tracks in Mario Kart, so why would I like this one in particular?
This track does have a cool looking design with massive pipes in the background along with the desert blocks from Super Mario Bros. 3 and several level obstacles, but the most interesting part of this track is actually the flying sun returning from Super Mario Bros. 3, shooting down balls of fire in the final lap. This at least makes the track a little bit more interesting than the average track, as the sun adds a sense of worry to you driving, because you could be hit by the fire. I mean, you probably won't, but you know, you can watch out. Anyway, next is Delfino Square, obviously based on Delfino Plaza from Super Mario Sunshine. I can't really tell if Delfino Square is supposed to be within Delfino Plaza, like it has some similar locations to Super Mario Sunshine, but it also adds more buildings and makes it feel more lived in, to be honest. There's clothes hangers across the buildings, there's separate shops that sell food, and more. There's moving bridges for boats to pass through. Delfino Square is a very interesting track to play through. There's a lot of sharp turns, a lot of level obstacles. It definitely teaches you about the sharp turns that can appear in future levels. But the next track is probably the most iconic track from Mario Kart DS of all time, Waluigi Pinball. Now, why is this track themed around Waluigi? I have no idea. Nothing about Waluigi makes you think pinball, but for some reason, this is his pinball, and it's a lot of fun. The entire track is actually just one massive pinball machine, with bumpers and pinballs coming down the track that I assume the massive Waluigi at the end of the track is playing. But once again, this track plays into the teaching the mechanics part of Mario Kart DS. Instead of there being a lot of sharp turns, there's a lot of curly turns. It mainly exists to teach you about drifting. Now, am I good at drifting in this game? No. But that's the intention behind this track, and I think the intention behind both the Mushroom Cup and the Flower Cup. The game wants you to learn all the tricks before getting into the harder tracks. And finally is Shroom Ridge. Shroom Ridge is one of those classic driving on a real road tracks, having to avoid all the cars that come your way, and actually throws pretty much everything you've learnt thus far into one big track. There's turns where you'll need to drift, there's sharp turns, level obstacles, massive areas you can fall off the track, there's hills, there's everything. Shroom Ridge is the ultimate challenge for the initial two cups of Mario Kart DS.
And now, the Star Cup. This is the first cup that's truly a challenge. You need to come first place in the Mushroom Cup and the Flower Cup in order to unlock the Star Cup. But luckily, after doing all that work, you can use the skills that you learnt in the Mushroom Cup and the Flower Cup in order to persevere and come first place in the Star Cup as well.
The first track we have is DK Pass, a snow level themed around Donkey Kong. Mario Kart Wii has a similar track to this one, and I must say I really enjoy both of these tracks. DK Pass is a lot of fun, but it's honestly forgettable compared to the Wii Donkey Kong snow level. Well, until DK Pass Return to Mario Kart World, of course. So when I played Mario Kart World and I played this track, I could have sworn that this track was the Wii track, and that Mario Kart World had just made the remake completely differently, practically being a different track with just the same name. But no, it's actually a remake of the DS track, and I would say that it recreates it pretty faithfully. Of course, Mario Kart World has this whole other feature of you being able to drive from one track to another, which makes it a bit different to the original track, but it's a pretty faithful recreation. DK Pass in Mario Kart DS is fun too. It has a lot of sections where you could fall off the map, a lot of turns, and a lot of level obstacles. Next is Tick-Tock Clock, and once again I have a lot to say about the recreation of this track compared to the original version, but just to quickly describe the original version of this track, Tick-Tock Clock was originally a level in Super Mario 64 and obviously appeared again in Super Mario 64 DS, and is known as being a pretty hard level in those games, and that's seen in the Mario Kart DS version of this track. This track is so easy to fall off the edge, the actual road is quite tight, there's so many moving objects that just want to hit you. It's a pretty difficult track, and that continues to be the case when Tick-Tock Clock returned in Mario Kart 8. In Mario Kart 8, it was a part of the Lightning Cup, which happens to have my favourite track of all time, Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 64. So I've played quite a lot of Tick-Tock Clock, and to be honest, because I've played it so many times, I just find it a bit boring now. Like, it inherently isn't a bad track, it's actually quite a unique track that I think is quite well made, but I've just played through it that many times that if I could go through my entire life never playing Tick-Tock Clock again, I would! The third track we have is Mario Circuit. Finally, a Mario Circuit for Mario Kart DS. And this track honestly feels like it should have appeared earlier in the game. Maybe this and Luigi's Mansion should swap. I mean, it does have a lot of the things we were taught in the earlier tracks, so I guess putting it in the Star Cup was the only place it could fit, but it really feels like an early Cup track. One cool thing that this track has is Peach's Castle right in the middle of the track. You can drive up to the gate, you can't get as close as you could in Mario Kart 64, but it's still really cool seeing it as a big centerpiece within this track, even if it's already been done in the past. Also, things are about to get pretty confusing. Just wait a little bit. The final track of the Star Cup is Airship Fortress, which, yes, is based on the flying airships from Super Mario Bros. 3. I don't know why this Mario Kart game has so much influence from Super Mario Bros. 3. Well, actually, I do have a theory, but we'll get to it when we talk about the retro tracks. It's a pretty unique theory. Anyway, Airship Fortress kind of fits as a Bowser Castle track, which, yes, there is one further on, but this track is probably the hardest track so far. There's bullet bills flying at you at the beginning, there's other enemies, there's fire bars, there's places where you can fall off the track. It's a pretty difficult track, all things considered. This track takes a lot of practice to attempt to learn, but to be honest, with all of these different challenges, it kind of makes this track not that fun.
Look, when I say it's not a great track, it's still an awesome Mario Kart track and is better than like 90% of tracks in other mascot kart racing games. It just doesn't really live up to the other levels within Mario Kart DS.
But that's okay, because next we have the final cup of all the new tracks, once I get a gold trophy in this one. Finally, we have unlocked the Special Cup. The Special Cup has the hardest levels that Mario Kart DS has to offer, and it does not disappoint. The first track is Wario Stadium, which, yes, is a completely different Wario Stadium to the one that appears in Mario Kart 64, just pretend that the two are called something different, I guess. This track is all about you doing jumps off of ramps, pads that make you drive faster, and avoiding the mud. You probably will end up driving through some of the mud, but it could be avoidable. I wasn't really that much of a fan of the Wario Stadium and Mario Kart 64, again, use the same logic from Airship Fortress, but this game actually makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Wario Stadium is quite a fun track, but I do wish that there was a little less mud, and that it was a little easier to avoid, because it really slows you down to an almost complete stop all the time, and because the actual tracks are so thin at some points, it makes it a bit difficult to stay on track. Next is Peach Gardens, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing. In case you forgot when I mentioned that things would get confusing earlier, Peach Gardens supposedly takes place, at least I assume, in the garden of Peach's castle. The castle we see in this track is not Peach's castle, and is instead just this big building that kinda looks like her castle, which makes you question whether this is actually her garden. I mean, where are we in terms to Peach's castle from that last track? Is this within the castle grounds, or is it outside of the castle grounds? Because we certainly can't see this track in Mario Circuit. Anyway, this track is alright. It's a basic track with a few twists and turns and interesting scenery to look at, Nothing special, nothing terrible. For our second last track, we have Bowser Castle. This, unsurprisingly, is one of Bowser's many castles. At least I assume he has multiple castles, because I can't see a world where he takes down his castle and completely redecorates the place during the events of each Mario Kart. But hey, maybe he does, I don't know. That makes it a bit more confusing for the ones that have multiple Bowser castles in it. This track throws at us pretty much everything that we've learned thus far from playing Mario Kart DS, and is pretty much the ultimate challenge before we get to the big celebration at the end. This track has a lot of enemies, moving objects such as the ground just like Tick-Tock Clock, places where you can fall off the edge, drifting areas like Airship Fortress, and more. This track is probably the hardest track in the entire game, but that's for good reason. Now I wouldn't say this is one of the best Bowser Castle tracks, I mean there's literally 1,000 of them and none of them are that exciting, but this track gets enough right that I can enjoy this track at least a little bit. And finally we have Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road is a staple of Mario Kart, and Mario Kart DS does not disappoint. This Rainbow Road actually feels inspired by the Rainbow Road from Mario Kart Double Dash, but with a completely new song instead of the one from Double Dash in 64, and has so many loops and anti-gravity sections that you'd be shocked that it originated here and not in Mario Kart 8. There are better Rainbow Roads out there, that's for sure, but that doesn't mean that this one's bad. The only bad Rainbow Road is Mario Kart 8's Rainbow Road. This one still feels like a celebration of everything that you've done in the game, and it's still truly a magical experience that feels right at home at the end of the game. No doubt about it.
Now that may be the end of the original tracks that appear throughout Mario Kart DS, but we're nowhere near the actual ending of the game. There's of course the 4 Cups of Retro tracks. Now I have talked about every single one of these tracks in the other videos I made about the previous Mario Kart games, so I'm not going to go into full detail about them here, but I'll bring up some specific examples just to, you know, discuss how these retro tracks work.
Firstly, because this is the 5th Mario Kart game, each cup includes one track from the other games, with the first track being the SNES track, the second one being the Nintendo 64 track, the third one being the Game Boy Advance track, and the final track being the GameCube track. This leads to some pretty weird things, like there being 2 Luigi Circuit tracks. Which, like, how do you do that? There's like 20 tracks in Super Circuit and you decide to pick the one that has an alternative in Double Dash? But still, it shows that this game attempts to feed off of your nostalgia for Mario games of the past. This is something that Mario Kart 8 would do, especially when it came to the Booster Course Pass with 8 Deluxe. But Mario Kart DS knows that the fans love the previous entries, specifically 64 and Double Dash, so it includes what people consider to be the best tracks from them. And I think that's why the regular tracks include so many references to Super Mario Bros. 3. This game is all about both looking forward in the Mario Kart series, while taking a look back at the wider Mario franchise as a whole. The worst cup is easily the Shell Cup though, as 3 out of its 4 tracks are literally circuit tracks, with the first track being Mario Circuit 1, followed by Moo Moo Farm, followed by Peach Circuit, finishing with Luigi Circuit. But all the other tracks have a bit more variety, or at least as much variety as you can give, given the lack of Mario Kart games to pull from. But having all of these tracks in this game makes this just feel like a complete Mario Kart game.
So, is Mario Kart DS perfect? No, of course. Why would it be? How could it be perfect? That's physically impossible. How could a game be perfect? No game is perfect. Can you name a game that's perfect? I can't name a game that's perfect. You guys just keep clicking on these videos that are is blank perfect, so you know, I guess I gotta keep asking the question.
But that doesn't mean that Mario Kart DS isn't an absolutely incredible Mario Kart game, being pretty close to perfect. Not every track is as good as each other, sure, but each track builds upon the previous track in ways that even future Mario Kart games don't really do. Learning the skills throughout playing the previous tracks, and also in the mission mode, make it really fun to try and master this game, more so than any other Mario Kart game. And without this Mario Kart game, many people wouldn't have gotten into the Mario Kart series. I mean, this is one of the best-selling Mario Kart games of all time on one of the best-selling consoles of all time. Mario Kart DS both revolutionized the Mario Kart series, while also being able to look back at the past and respect what came before. What other Mario Kart game could do that?
Pretty much every single other Mario Kart game after this.
Still, Mario Kart DS may not be perfect, but it's incredible, it's magnificent, and it just works.
So join me next time when we discuss the other high-selling Mario Kart game on one of the highest-selling video game consoles of all time. Are we really still doing this phone call thing? We're in season 3 at this point. This joke's a bit old by now. Hello?
You forgot about Mario Kart Arcade GP.
I mean, I didn't forget about Mario Kart Arcade GP. I just didn't think it was worth making an entire video about because it's Mario Kart Arcade GP. What the hell am I meant to talk about?
It's my favorite Mario Kart game. You need to play it. You need to. Otherwise, I'll send out the goons.
The goons? Whatever. Fine. Yeah, whatever. Join me next time when I'll talk about Mario Kart Arcade GP. And I'll talk about how they randomly added Pac-Man to Mario Kart for some reason. What the hell's he doing there? He's not Mario Kart, he's Pac-Man. What do you think? Get out of here, Pac-Man.